There is a moment that happens quietly inside you. Someone asks for a favor. Maybe it's something small. Maybe it's something inconvenient. Maybe it's something that will drain you completely. And before your mind even finishes processing the request, you hear yourself say it. Sure. Even though your body tightens, even though your stomach sinks, even though somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispers, I don't want to. But you say yes anyway, because saying no feels dangerous. Not physically dangerous, but emotionally dangerous. Because somewhere in your nervous system, there is an ancient belief. If you say no, they might stop liking you. If you say no, they might get angry. If you say no, they might leave. So you become the reliable one, the agreeable one, the helpful one. The person everyone describes as so nice. But what they don't see is the silent negotiation constantly happening inside your mind. You are always calculating. How much disappointment can they tolerate? How much honesty is safe? How much of yourself must be sacrificed to maintain peace? And over time, something strange begins to happen. Your kindness becomes exhaustion. Your empathy becomes obligation. Your generosity becomes self-erasure. The very trait that once protected your relationships becomes the thing that slowly dismantles your identity. This is the hidden psychology of people who struggle to say no. Because for many of them, saying no was never just a word, it was a risk. And the mind remembers risks long after the danger has passed. To understand this behavior, we have to look at how the brain learns safety. Human beings are not born knowing how to belong, something fundamental. Am I safe to exist as I am, or must I adapt to survive? For many people who struggle to say no, the answer came early and quietly. Love is conditional. Psychologists refer to this pattern as fawning. The fawn response is one of the lesser-known trauma responses, alongside fight, flight, and freeze. Instead of confronting danger or escaping it, the nervous system learns to appease it. The child becomes hyper-attuned to other people's emotions. They learn to read micro-expressions, tone shifts, and subtle signals of disappointment. Their survival strategy becomes simple: keep everyone happy, and the brain becomes extraordinarily skilled at it. This often overlaps with a concept known as hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is a state where the nervous system remains constantly alert to emotional threats. But instead of scanning for physical danger, you scan for disapproval. You notice when someone's voice changes slightly. You notice when someone pauses before replying. You notice when someone seems even mildly upset. Your brain treats these signals like alarms. So you smooth things over. You volunteer. You apologize. You agree. Not because you lack strength, but because your nervous system has been trained to believe conflict equals danger. Another powerful concept here is parentification. Parentification occurs when a child becomes responsible for regulating the emotional atmosphere of the household. They learn that their role is not simply to be a child, but to be a stabilizer, a peacekeeper, a tiny emotional manager. And when that happens, something profound takes place in the brain. The child stops asking, "What do I want?" and instead begins asking, "What will keep everyone calm?" This rewires decision-making itself. Your instincts become externally focused. Your sense of worth becomes tied to usefulness. And the habit of saying yes becomes embedded deep inside the nervous system, not as a personality trait, but as a survival adaptation. But survival strategies have hidden costs. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For people who struggle to say no, this privilege becomes extraordinarily complicated because authenticity feels risky. You learned early that certain parts of yourself had consequences. Your anger was inconvenient. Your needs were disruptive. Your boundaries were unacceptable. So you did what intelligent children always do. You adapted. You became flexible, understanding, accommodating. But adaptation has a shadow. The shadow is invisible grief. The grief of constantly shrinking. The grief of swallowing words you wanted to say. The grief of realizing that people often love the version of you that is easiest for them, not necessarily the version that is most real. And so a quiet resentment begins to grow, not necessarily toward others, but toward the invisible contract you feel trapped inside. The contract that says, your value lies in being agreeable. This is the deep philosophical weight carried by chronic people pleasers, because belonging becomes tied to self-betrayal. Every time you say yes when you mean no, a small fracture forms between who you are and how you behave, and fractures accumulate. Eventually, you begin to feel something difficult to explain. You are surrounded by people, yet you feel strangely unseen, because the version of you they know is not the version that lives inside your mind. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once warned about this exact dilemma. He wrote, "The greatest hazard of all is the risk of losing oneself." And for people who cannot say no, this loss happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. By the time this pattern reaches adulthood, it manifests in ways that seem completely normal from the outside, but internally, the cost is enormous. You might recognize some of these patterns. You might overcommit constantly. You say yes to plans, favors, and responsibilities, even when your energy is already depleted. You might feel intense anxiety before setting boundaries. Even sending a simple message declining an invitation can trigger hours of overthinking. You might apologize excessively, even when you have done nothing wrong. Sorry becomes a reflex. You might stay in unhealthy relationships longer than you should, because leaving feels like failure or cruelty. You might struggle with resentment. Not because you dislike people, but because you feel trapped by expectations. And perhaps the most painful one, you might lose clarity about what you actually want, because you have spent years prioritizing other people's needs. But here is the critical truth. These behaviors are not personality traits. They are coping strategies. Your brain built them to protect you, and recognizing this is the first step of healing. Not shaming yourself, not forcing yourself to suddenly become confrontational, but learning to witness the pattern, to notice the moment your body says yes before your mind has decided, to pause, to ask a question you may not have asked yourself in years. What do I actually want? This moment of awareness is incredibly powerful because awareness interrupts automatic patterns, and the brain cannot unlearn something it refuses to acknowledge. Healing from this pattern does not mean becoming cold or selfish. It means reclaiming something you were never meant to lose: your right to exist without constant negotiation. One powerful approach therapists often use is called inner child reparenting. This involves recognizing that the part of you who fears saying no is often the younger version of yourself, the child who learned that compliance equals safety. Healing means speaking to that part of you differently. Instead of forcing yourself into bravery, you offer reassurance. You remind yourself, conflict does not equal abandonment.
Boundaries do not equal cruelty, and honesty does not equal rejection. Another important step is shadow work. Shadow work involves acknowledging the emotions you were taught to suppress: anger, frustration, disappointment. These emotions are not moral failures. They are signals. They are the psyche's way of protecting your dignity. Learning to tolerate these emotions without immediately suppressing them is transformative, because boundaries are not built from confidence. They are built from self-respect. And self-respect grows slowly, each time you pause before agreeing.
Each time you give yourself permission to consider your own needs. Each time you say a small, quiet, respectful no. Over time, something remarkable happens. You begin to realize that the people who truly value you do not require constant sacrifice. And the people who cannot tolerate your boundaries are often benefiting from their absence. The writer Brené Brown once said, "Daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves." And that is what this journey ultimately becomes. Not a rebellion against others, but a reunion with yourself. Because the goal is not to become harder. The goal is not to become distant. The goal is to become whole, to be kind without self-abandonment, generous without exhaustion, loving without disappearing. So if you have struggled to say no your entire life, understand this: nothing is wrong with you. Your mind simply learned a survival strategy that once kept you safe. But safety and wholeness are not always the same thing. And healing begins the moment you realize you were never meant to earn your place in the world through constant agreement. You were meant to exist fully, honestly, and unapologetically. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, the journey isn't about fixing yourself. It's about finally allowing yourself to become who you were always meant to be.